My college best friend made my life hell, stalked me, and tried to frame my boyfriend, so I slammed the door on her forever. 5 years later, she sent me a letter claiming we were meant to be together. My friend saw me as her competition, until I took things too far. I still remember the first friend I had made in college. Before this, I was a nobody. I spent my nights listening to My Chemical Romance and refusing to wash the same black hoodie I wore every day because it was my comfort item. So when I met Nancy, she seemed like the nicest girl in the whole world. She would always call me fat, remind me that I shouldn't eat so much or I would die alone, and even broke the window in my room to make it colder. Said it was a life hack to burn more calories without even trying. To me, it was peak friendship, because she talked to me exactly the same way I talked to myself, so I simply thought it was normal. And after 6 months, her methods worked. I had lost 50 pounds, and for the first time, I could wear skinny jeans without my rolls poking out from my cropped hoodies. We were together when a guy catcalled me for the first time. He was homeless and had one tooth barely hanging onto his gums, and I know I'm not supposed to feel flattered by it, but I was. Not because of the homeless guy, but because I knew I was finally pretty enough to be objectified. And I guess Nancy picked up on that, because as soon as we passed him, he said, "You know he's only attracted to you because you look like a little 10-year-old boy? He's probably a gay kitty fiddler." Her words were so shocking that I actually stopped in my tracks and asked her to repeat herself. And when she did, I burst out laughing. Like, what in the bomba clot? But the harder I laughed, the angrier she got. And by the time we made it back to our dorms, we were walking in complete silence. From there, she started texting me strange things. Like once I woke up to a video of her shoving a cucumber in and out of her mouth. "Look, bet you can't put it in this far without gagging," she yelled, taunting me like it was the biggest flex known to mankind. But still, I thought this was just what normal girls texted each other. So I replied saying, "Yeah, probably not," and moved on with my day. Or tried to, at least. Because in my lecture about economics and politics, I got distracted. There was a cute guy sitting right beside me. He smelled so good that I had to stop myself from asking him to be my husband right then and there. And as soon as the lecture ended, I did what any regular girl would do. I got ready to run out and never see him again. Yes, I was that shy. But he stopped me and asked for my Snapchat. We ended up snapping all day, and I found out he had an emo phase just like mine. And even though it had only been a day, he already felt like home. My heart was filled with so many gooey, lovey thoughts that I felt like if I didn't talk to someone about it, I would explode. So I texted Nancy asking her to come over. As soon as she got in the door, I flashed Leo's Bitmoji, cute guy's name, in her face. "Look, this guy asked me for my snap today. I think he really likes me." I was then interrupted by the sound of her hand slamming against her forehead. "You actually believe that this guy likes you?" was the first thing she asked. I felt the light in my heart go out. Nancy dragged me over to the mirror. "Look at yourself. Tell me what you see." I didn't say a word. "Your arms, completely shaven. Your skin, soft and beautiful. Your eyes, big and mesmerizing." Her words felt flattering, but she said it like I was the most disgusting thing to ever walk the planet. "These are all features of a child. This guy is an effing kitty fiddler. You need to stay away from him." I furrowed my eyebrows and stared at her. For the first time, I started to see how strange Nancy really was. Okay, thanks for letting me know," I said, before politely kicking her out and slamming the door in her face. I spent the next few days in and out of the gym, focusing on college work and cute guy. Turns out being alone was 10 times better than being around Nancy, and it was the best I had felt since college started. And that same week, Leo asked me out. He didn't ask me where I wanted to go. He just sent me the address of a nearby restaurant, told me what time our reservation was for, and that he would pick me up beforehand. Like, hello? Okay, hubby. Suddenly, I was hit with the rush of gooey feelings again, and my female hormone brain convinced me to tell Nancy about it. I didn't want her to rain on my parade, so I tried to hide my excitement. Just sent her the time of the reservation and asked what she thought of the outfit I was going to wear. All she said was, "Nice," before blocking me on everything. Fast forward to the date. Leo rented a huge black car with tinted windows just for the day and wore a tight shirt that made me want to munch on his biceps. But as soon as we got to the restaurant, the date ended, because we were met with a flood of police officers. And beside them was Nancy, pointing at Leo. "That girl is 14 and he's in college. Lock him up, officers." Well, both of us had our IDs, so we simply showed them, and that was enough for them to immediately drive away. And I didn't know it at the time, but Nancy had fallen in love with me, and she hated me for finding someone else, enough to ruin my entire life. The cops apologized for the confusion and left. Leo and I stood there awkwardly for a minute. I told him I was so sorry about Nancy and that she was just crazy. He laughed it off and we went inside for our date. The food was amazing and Leo was even better. We talked about everything from our favorite bands to our worst professors. I felt like I could be myself around him. After dinner, he drove me back to my dorm and walked me to my door. He kissed me goodnight and I practically floated inside. I immediately tried to text Nancy to tell her off, but remembered she blocked me. Whatever, I thought. I didn't need her negativity in my life anyway. The next morning, I woke up to find my door covered in printed photos. They were all pictures of me from different angles, some from months ago. In each one, Nancy had drawn circles around parts of my body with notes like fat here, an ugly nose, and childish face. I ripped them all down and threw them in the trash. I was done with her games, but she wasn't done with me. Later that day, I got called into the dean's office. Someone had reported me for academic dishonesty. They said I had been cheating on all my exams. The dean showed me an anonymous email with screenshots of what looked like my messages asking someone for test answers, but I had never sent those messages. I explained everything and showed them my actual phone. They believed me, but said they had to investigate anyway. I left feeling sick to my stomach. I knew it was Nancy. Who else would do this? I went straight to her dorm room and banged on the door. Her roommate Barbara answered and told me Nancy wasn't there. I asked when she'd be back, but Barbara just shrugged. I went back to my room and tried to focus on homework, but couldn't concentrate. Leo texted asking if I wanted to grab coffee, and I said yes immediately. I needed to get out of my head. We met at the campus coffee shop and I told him everything about Nancy. He listened without interrupting and then said we should report her for harassment. I agreed but wasn't sure what proof I had. The photos on my door were already in the trash. The fake messages to the dean were anonymous. It was my word against hers. Leo said he'd help me figure it out and that made me feel better. We studied together for a few hours and then he walked me back again. This time when I got to my room, my window was open. The one Nancy had broken months ago that maintenance had fixed. It was broken again. Glass was everywhere. My laptop was missing from my desk. So was my wallet. I called campus security immediately. They came and took a report but said without cameras in the dorms there wasn't much they could do. I knew it was Nancy but had no way to prove it. Leo helped me clean up the glass and offered to let me use his laptop for homework. I was so grateful for him. That night I barely slept. Every noise made me jump. I kept thinking Nancy would show up at any moment. The next day I went to all my classes like normal but felt paranoid the whole time. During lunch I saw Nancy across the cafeteria. She was sitting with a group of girls I didn't recognize. When she saw me looking, she smiled and waved like nothing had happened. I wanted to march over there and confront her but Leo grabbed my arm. He said it wasn't worth it and we should just avoid her. But avoiding her was impossible when she was actively trying to destroy my life. That afternoon, I got an email from my economics professor. He wanted to see me about my recent assignment. My stomach dropped. I went to his office and he showed me my paper. Someone had submitted a second version under my name that was full of plagiarized content. I explained what was happening and thankfully he believed me since he'd seen my work all semester. He said he'd ignore the fake submission but suggested I change all my passwords. I spent the rest of the day updating every account I had. New passwords for everything. I even got a new lock for my dorm room. Leo came over that night with Chinese takeout and helped me set up two-factor authentication on all my accounts. We were eating when my phone started blowing up. Someone had made an Instagram account with my name and photos. They were posting really inappropriate stuff and tagging everyone from our college. I reported it immediately, but the damage was done. People were already commenting and sharing. I felt sick. Leo helped me message everyone explaining it wasn't me. Most people understood, but some didn't believe me. I barely ate anything and just wanted to hide under my covers forever. The next morning, things got worse. I woke up to find my bike tires slashed. I had parked it right outside my dorm like always. Now both tires were completely destroyed. I had to walk to all my classes that day. During my political science lecture, my phone kept buzzing. Nancy was texting me from different numbers. Each message was meaner than the last. She called me pathetic, said Leo was only dating me out of pity, and that everyone was laughing at me behind my back. I blocked each number, but new ones kept coming. By lunch, I was exhausted. I met Leo and showed him all the messages. He was furious and said we needed to do something. We went to campus security again, but they said without proof it was Nancy. They couldn't help. The texts were from random numbers that could belong to anyone. I wanted to scream. How was she getting away with all this? That night, I stayed in Leo's dorm because I was too scared to be alone. His roommate Edward was cool about it and even offered to walk me to classes the next day. I finally felt safe enough to sleep. But in the morning, I had 30 missed calls from my mom. Nancy had somehow found her number and called her pretending to be a counselor. She told my mom I was failing all my classes and doing substances. My mom was freaking out. I spent an hour on the phone explaining everything. My mom believed me but was worried. She wanted me to come home but I refused. I wasn't going to let Nancy win. After that call, I was angry. Really angry. I decided to fight back. I started documenting everything. Every text, every incident, every time I saw her around campus. Leo helped me create a folder with timestamps and screenshots. We were building a case. A few days passed without any major incidents. I started to think maybe Nancy had given up. I was wrong. Friday afternoon, I got back to my dorm to find my clothes scattered all over the hallway. My drawers were pulled out and emptied. Nothing was stolen, but everything was touched. It felt so violating. Some girls from down the hall helped me gather everything. They said they saw Nancy leaving my room earlier, but thought she was just visiting. I added it to my documentation. That weekend, Leo and I tried to have a normal date. We went to see a movie off campus, but when we got back, Nancy was waiting by his car. She looked terrible. Her hair was messy and she had dark circles under her eyes. She started crying and saying she missed me. She said she was sorry and just wanted to be friends again. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Then she saw Leo and her whole demeanor changed. She called him disgusting and said he was taking advantage of me. Leo told her to leave us alone. She laughed and said we'd regret this. Then she walked away. We should have called security right then, but we didn't. Monday morning, I woke up to find my class schedule had been changed. Someone had dropped me from all my courses and added random ones. I ran to the registrar's office in a panic. They said the changes were made online with my login information. It took hours to fix, and I missed 2 important lectures. While I was dealing with that, Leo texted saying Nancy had shown up at his job. He worked part-time at the campus bookstore. She caused a scene, yelling that he was a predator. His manager Gary had to escort her out. Leo was embarrassed, but his manager understood it wasn't his fault. I met him after his shift, and we decided enough was enough. We went to the dean of students and laid out everything. The dean, Joyce, listened carefully and said this was serious. She would open an investigation and talk to Nancy. Finally, someone was taking this seriously. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. I kept waiting for something to happen, but nothing did. I started to relax a little. Maybe the dean had scared Nancy straight. Leo and I studied together every night, and I was catching up on all my work. Things felt almost normal. Then Thursday happened. I was in the library when my laptop started acting weird. Files were being deleted in real time. I watched helplessly as my essays disappeared. Someone was remotely accessing my computer. I slammed it shut and ran to IT. They said my laptop was full of malware. Someone had installed it when my laptop was stolen. They had to wipe everything. I lost so much work. I wanted to cry, but I was too angry. This had to stop. I stormed over to Nancy's dorm. dorm. Her roommate Barbara let me in and said Nancy was in the shower. I decided to wait. While sitting there, I noticed Nancy's laptop was open. I know I shouldn't have looked, but I did. Her browser was open to my social media. She had documents with my passwords, my mom's phone number, even my class schedule. There were photos of me and Leo that she'd taken without us knowing. I quickly took pictures of everything with my phone. Finally, I had proof. When Nancy came out and saw me, she froze. I told her I knew everything and had evidence. I said if she didn't stop, I'd take it all to the police. She laughed and said no one would believe me. She said she was just trying to protect me from Leo, that she loved me and wanted what was best for me. I told her she was sick and needed help. Then I left. I went straight to campus security with the photos. Officer Ryan took my report seriously this time. He said they'd been getting other complaints about Nancy from different students. Apparently, I wasn't her first target. He said they were building a case and my evidence helped. I felt relieved, but also worried. What if this made her escalate? I told Leo everything, and he said I should stay with him for a while. His roommate Edward was going home for the weekend, so I'd have a bed. I agreed and packed a bag. That night, we ordered pizza and watched movies. For a few hours, I forgot about Nancy. It was nice, but it didn't last. Saturday morning, Leo's phone rang at 6 a.m. It was his mom, Jacqueline. Someone had called her claiming Leo was in the hospital after a car accident. She was hysterical. Leo calmed her down and explained he was fine. We both knew who had called her. Nancy had found his mom's number somehow. This was too far. We went to the police station that morning. Not campus security, but actual police. Officer Joshua took our statement and said they'd look into it. He gave us a case number and said to document any further incidents. On the way back, we stopped for breakfast. I was exhausted and scared. Leo held my hand and promised everything would be okay. I wanted to believe him. The rest of the weekend was surprisingly calm. Nancy didn't try anything else. Maybe the police visit had scared her. Leo and I spent Sunday studying and doing laundry. Normal college stuff. It felt good. Monday morning, I moved back to my own dorm. I couldn't hide forever. My new lock was working and I'd added a doorstop for extra security. I went to all my classes and actually paid attention. During lunch, I saw Nancy in the cafeteria. She was sitting alone, picking at her food. When our eyes met, she looked away. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered everything she'd done. After classes, I had a meeting with Dean Joyce. She said Nancy had been given a formal warning. One more incident and she'd face suspension. She also said Nancy was required to attend counseling. I hoped it would help but doubted it. That night, I was doing homework when someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Nancy. She was crying. Against my better judgment, I opened the door but kept the chain on. She begged me to talk to her, said she was sorry and didn't mean for things to go so far. She said she was getting help and wanted to make amends. I told her I accepted her apology but we couldn't be friends. She needed to leave me alone. She nodded and left. I thought maybe it was finally over. I texted Leo about what happened and he said I did the right thing. We made plans to study together the next day. Tuesday started normal. I went to my morning classes and met Leo for lunch. We were laughing about something stupid when Nancy appeared at our table, but she wasn't alone. She had brought 3 girls with her. I recognized them from around campus but didn't know their names. Nancy sat down uninvited and introduced them as her new friends. She said they wanted to meet the girl who had been spreading lies about her. I was confused. What lies? The girls started accusing me of trying to ruin Nancy's reputation. They said I was jealous of her and making up stories. Leo told them they were wrong, but they wouldn't listen. Other people in the cafeteria were staring. Nancy sat there with a small smile, pretending to be the victim. I grabbed my stuff and left with Leo following. I was shaking with anger. She had turned people against me. The rest of the week was horrible. Those girls followed me around campus, whispering and pointing. They'd sit near me in the library and talk loudly about how some people were attention seekers. They'd bump into me in hallways and pretend it was an accident. I tried to ignore them, but it was hard. Leo confronted them once, but they just laughed and called him pathetic. I reported it to Dean Joyce, but without proof they were harassing me, she couldn't do much. Nancy was smart. She wasn't doing anything directly, so she couldn't get in trouble. She was using other people as weapons. I started skipping meals to avoid the cafeteria. I'd eat granola bars in my room instead. Leo was worried and brought me real food when he could. Friday afternoon, things escalated again. I got back from class to find a note under my door. It said, "You should have stayed fat and ugly. At least then you knew your place." I recognized Nancy's handwriting. I added it to my evidence folder. An hour later, another note appeared. This one was worse. It had a crude drawing of me and threats about what would happen if I didn't leave Leo. I was scared but also furious. I called Officer Joshua and reported the notes. He said to keep them safe and call if anything else happened. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me panic. I texted Leo at 3 a.m. and he offered to come over. I said no, but appreciated it. I needed to be strong. Saturday morning, I woke up to banging on my door. It was Nancy's new friends. They were hammered and yelling about me being a liar. Other people on my floor came out to see what was happening. The girls called me horrible names and said Nancy was too good for me. Someone called security and they scattered before officers arrived, but the damage was done. Now everyone on my floor thought I was involved in some drama. Some girls asked if I was okay, but others avoided me. I spent the rest of the day in Leo's room. We watched movies and tried to pretend everything was normal, but it wasn't. I was tired of being afraid, tired of Nancy controlling my life. Something had to change. Sunday night, I made a decision. I was going to confront Nancy publicly, make her admit what she was doing in front of witnesses. It was risky, but I was desperate. I texted her saying we needed to talk and suggested meeting in the common area of her dorm. She agreed immediately. Leo wanted to come, but I said no. This was between me and Nancy. I arrived at her dorm at 8 p.m. The common area had about 10 people studying. Perfect. Nancy was already there, sitting on a couch. She smiled when she saw me. I sat across from her and started talking. I said loudly enough for others to hear that I wanted to know why she was harassing me, why she had called the cops on my date, stolen my laptop, called my mom, and turned people against me. Nancy's face changed. She denied everything and said I was crazy. People were definitely listening now. I pulled out my phone and showed the photos I'd taken of her laptop, the evidence of her stalking me. Nancy tried to grab my phone, but I pulled back. She started yelling that I had broken into her room and invaded her privacy. I said she had done the same to me multiple times. We went back and forth, voices getting louder. She admitted to some things but twisted them, said she was just trying to protect me, that Leo was dangerous and I was too naive to see it. I asked how slashing my bike tires protected me, how spreading lies helped me. She couldn't answer. People were recording now. Good. I wanted witnesses. Nancy realized she was losing control. She stood up and said I'd regret this. Then she left. I sat there shaking. Several people came over to check on me. They said they'd had weird encounters with Nancy too. One girl, Heather, said Nancy had done similar things to her last year. We exchanged numbers and promised to support each other. I left feeling oddly victorious. Finally, people knew the truth, but I should have known Nancy wouldn't give up that easily. That night, she posted a long rant on the college Facebook page. She claimed I was bullying her because she rejected my romantic advances. She said I was obsessed with her and jealous of her friendship with Leo. It was so twisted I almost laughed, but people were commenting and taking sides. Some believed her, others defended me. It became this huge thing. By morning, everyone on campus knew about our drama. I was mortified. This wasn't what I wanted. Leo found me crying in my room. He held me and said it would blow over, that the truth would come out, but I wasn't so sure anymore. Monday was awful. Everyone stared at me wherever I went. Professors asked if I was okay. Random people shared their opinions on the situation. I felt like a circus animal. Nancy seemed to thrive on the attention. She played victim perfectly, crying in public and talking about how scared she was of me. Her new friends backed her up, spreading more lies. I tried to defend myself, but it was exhausting. Some people believed me, especially after Heather shared her own story about Nancy, but others thought I was the problem. Leo stayed by my side through it all. He'd walk me to classes and eat every meal with me. I don't know what I would have done without him. By Wednesday, the administration got involved. They called both Nancy and me in for separate meetings. Dean Joyce said the situation had gotten out of hand. She interviewed witnesses and reviewed all the evidence. Nancy stuck to her story, but it was falling apart. Too many people had come forward with similar experiences. The girl who helped me pick up my clothes had given a statement. The IT department confirmed the malware on my laptop. Officer Ryan verified the timeline of events. Even Barbara, Nancy's roommate, admitted Nancy had been acting strange. The evidence was overwhelming. Dean Joyce said there would be a formal hearing to determine consequences. Nancy was temporarily banned from contacting me. Finally, some protection. But Nancy didn't care about bans. Thursday night, she showed up at Leo's job again, this time with her friends. They caused such a scene that mall security got involved. Leo's manager had to close the store early. Leo could have lost his job. I was furious. This had to end. I called Officer Joshua and updated him. He said they were close to having enough for a restraining order, just a little more evidence. That night, Leo and I sat in his room making a plan. We would document everything obsessively, get statements from everyone involved, make it impossible for Nancy to wiggle out of consequences. We were done being victims. Friday morning brought a new crisis. I woke up to find my car keyed. Deep scratches spelled out nasty words across the driver's side. I'd parked in the secured student lot, but somehow Nancy had gotten in, or maybe she'd sent her friends. I took photos and filed another police report. The damage would cost hundreds to fix. Money I didn't have. I called my parents and finally told them everything. They were shocked and wanted to come get me. I convinced them to wait until after the hearing. I needed to see this through. That afternoon, more people reached out with Nancy stories. A guy named Juan said she'd stalked him freshman year. A girl named Ashley had screenshots of Nancy harassing her online. The pattern was clear. Nancy fixated on people and destroyed their lives when rejected. I wasn't special, just her latest target. The weekend before the hearing was tense. Nancy went quiet again, but I knew she was planning something. Her friends still glared at me around campus, but kept their distance. I spent most of my time with Leo, preparing for the hearing. We organized all our evidence chronologically, printed out screenshots, police reports, witness statements. It was a thick folder by the time we finished. Looking at it all together was overwhelming. How had one person caused so much chaos? Sunday night, I couldn't eat. My stomach was in knots. Leo made me soup, and we watched comedies to distract me. He promised everything would work out, that after tomorrow, Nancy would face real consequences. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. Monday morning came too fast. The hearing was at 10 a.m. in the administration building. I wore my most professional outfit and arrived early. Leo came for support but had to wait outside. The room had a long table with 5 administrators, including Dean Joyce. Nancy was already there with her parents. She looked small and innocent. Nothing like the person who'd terrorized me for weeks. Her parents glared at me like I was the villain. I sat down and waited. Dean Joyce explained the process. Both sides would present their case. Witnesses could be called. The panel would then decide on consequences. Nancy went first. She stuck to her story about me being obsessed with her, said she felt unsafe on campus. Her mom cried on cue. It was quite a performance. But when they asked for evidence, Nancy struggled. She had no proof of her claims, just her word against mine. Then it was my turn. I opened my folder and started from the beginning. Every incident, every piece of evidence, every witness statement. I stayed calm and factual. No dramatics, just truth. The panel asked questions and I answered honestly. They seemed shocked by the amount of documentation. Nancy tried to interrupt several times but was told to wait. When I finished, witnesses were called. Heather testified about her experience. Barbara admitted Nancy had bragged about teaching me a lesson. Even the IT guy explained the sophisticated malware used. Nancy's story crumbled. Her parents looked confused, then angry. Not at me, but at their daughter. The hearing took 3 hours. When it ended, we were told to wait outside for the decision. I sat with Leo in the hallway, exhausted exhausted but hopeful. Nancy and her parents were further down, arguing in whispers. After an hour, Dean Joyce called us back. The panel had reached a decision. Nancy was found responsible for harassment, stalking, and cybercrimes. She was expelled effective immediately. She had 48 hours to leave campus. A no-contact order was issued. If she came near me again, she'd face criminal charges. I felt relief wash over me. It was over. Nancy's parents apologized to me before leaving. They looked devastated. Nancy said nothing, just stared at me with pure hatred. But I didn't care anymore. I'd won. Justice was served. Leo hugged me as soon as we left the building. We both cried a little. It had been such a long, horrible journey, but we'd made it through together. The next few days were surreal. News of Nancy's expulsion spread quickly. People who'd believed her lies apologized to me. Her friend group dissolved, distancing themselves from the drama. I started to feel safe again. I could walk to class without looking over my shoulder, eat in the cafeteria without fear, sleep through the night. It was amazing how quickly things improved without Nancy around. Leo and I went on actual dates again. We studied without constant interruption. Life returned to normal. Better than normal, actually. The experience had made us stronger. We knew we could handle anything together. A week later, I got a call from Officer Joshua. Nancy had been arrested in her hometown for harassing another girl. Apparently, she'd started fixating on someone new immediately after leaving campus. The girl's parents pressed charges, and Nancy's history made it worse. She was facing real jail time now. I felt bad for her new victim, but relieved Nancy was being stopped. Maybe now she'd finally get the help she needed. Or maybe not. Either way, she wasn't my problem anymore. I hung up and went to meet Leo for lunch. We had plans to see a movie later. Normal, boring, wonderful plans. No drama, no fear, just us. As I walked across campus, I realized something. I wasn't that scared girl in the black hoodie anymore. Nancy had tried to break me, but instead made me stronger. I'd learned to stand up for myself, to fight back, to not accept toxic behavior disguised as friendship. And I'd found real love with Leo, someone who supported me without tearing me down. Nancy had lost everything while I'd gained so much. I smiled, thinking about how different my life was now, better in every way. The sun was shining, and I had class in 10 minutes. But first, I stopped to help a freshman who looked lost. She reminded me of myself at the start of the year, scared and unsure. I pointed her toward the science building and told her college gets easier, that she'd find her people. She thanked me and hurried off. I watched her go, hoping she'd never meet her own Nancy. But if she did, I hoped she'd be strong enough to fight back, just like I had. The next few weeks were actually pretty chill. I went to classes, hung out with Leo, and started making new friends. Heather and I grabbed coffee sometimes and compared Nancy horror stories. It was weird how normal everything felt, like the whole Nancy thing had been a bad dream. But then I got a letter from her. Yeah, she actually mailed me a physical letter to my dorm. The envelope had hearts drawn all over it. Inside was 10 pages of rambling about how she forgave me for ruining her life, how we were meant to be together, how Leo had brainwashed me. Real unhinged stuff. I took it straight to campus security. Officer Ryan added it to my file and said they'd contact local police since she wasn't supposed to contact me. I tried not to let it bother me, but it did. Why couldn't she just leave me alone? Leo suggested we take a weekend trip to clear my head. His friend Gary had a cabin about 2 hours away that we could use. It sounded perfect. We drove up Friday after classes, singing along to terrible pop songs the whole way. The cabin was small but cozy. We made pasta for dinner and played card games. I felt myself finally relaxing. Saturday, we hiked around the nearby lake. The weather was perfect, and Leo kept making dumb jokes. I laughed so hard my sides hurt. That night, we made s'mores in the fireplace and talked about our plans after college. Everything felt right. Sunday morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing nonstop. I had like 50 missed calls from random numbers. Then texts started coming through, all from Nancy using different phones. She knew where we were. She described what I was wearing on the hike, what we ate for dinner. She'd been watching us the whole time. I showed Leo, and we immediately started packing. He called Gary to warn him about Nancy possibly being near his cabin. We threw everything in the car and left. The drive back was tense. I kept checking the mirrors for Nancy's car. Leo called the police and reported everything. They said to come straight to the station when we got back to town. We did, and spent 2 hours giving statements. Officer Joshua was mad that Nancy had violated the no-contact order. He said they'd put out a warrant for her arrest. That made me feel a little better, but I was still freaked out. How had she found us? We'd told no one where we were going. When we got back to campus, I found out how. Nancy had been calling people pretending to be me having an emergency. She'd tricked Leo's roommate Edward into telling her where we went. He felt terrible when he realized. I didn't blame him though. Nancy was really good at manipulation. The next few days I was paranoid again. I stayed in groups and avoided being alone. Campus security increased patrols around my dorm. Leo basically moved into my room temporarily. We pushed my desk against the door every night. It was exhausting being scared all the time. Wednesday afternoon, I was leaving the library when I saw her. Nancy was standing across the quad just watching me. She looked terrible. Hair unwashed, clothes wrinkled, dark circles under her eyes. When she saw me notice her, she started walking toward me. I froze for a second, then ran. Actually ran across campus to the security office. Officer Ryan immediately went to look for her, but she was gone. They reviewed security footage later and confirmed it was her. The warrant was already out, but now they actively started searching. Thursday was worse. I woke up to find photos slid under my door, pictures of me sleeping. She'd been in my room while I slept, while Leo was right there next to me. We hadn't heard anything. The door was still locked and blocked. She must have picked the lock somehow. I felt so violated. We called the police immediately and they dusted for fingerprints. They found Nancy's prints on the photos and door handle. This was serious now. Breaking and entering on top of everything else. They assigned an officer to patrol our dorm building. Leo and I moved to a hotel that night. The college paid for it given the circumstances. I couldn't stay in that room knowing she'd been there. I barely slept even in the hotel. Every noise made me jump. Friday morning, they caught her. Nancy was hiding in an empty dorm room in my building. She'd stolen a master key from somewhere and had been living in the walls, basically. The police found notebooks full of writing about me, detailed plans for what she wanted to do, photos she'd taken over months. It was seriously disturbing. They arrested her on multiple charges. I wasn't allowed to see the notebooks, but Officer Joshua said it was good they caught her when they did. She was escalating and it could have gotten dangerous. Well, more dangerous. I felt relief but also sadness. This girl I'd once called my best friend was completely gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize, someone who needed serious help. The weekend was spent moving to a new dorm room. The college fast-tracked my room change request. I got a single on the opposite side of campus. Leo and Edward helped me move everything. We didn't talk much, just focused on getting it done. My new room was smaller but felt safer. It was on the 3rd floor with better locks. I spent Saturday night organizing and trying to make it feel like home. Leo stayed over and we ordered Chinese food. We watched dumb comedies until we fell asleep. For the first time in days, I slept through the night. Sunday was quiet. I caught up on homework and did laundry. Normal stuff that felt amazing after the chaos. Heather stopped by with cookies she'd made. We talked about classes and boys and anything except Nancy. It was nice. Monday brought news from Officer Joshua. Nancy's parents had hired a lawyer, but it wasn't looking good for her. The evidence was overwhelming. Breaking and entering, stalking, harassment, violating a no-contact order. She was looking at actual jail time. Her parents wanted to meet with me. They said Nancy needed help and thought seeing me might make her realize what she'd done. I said absolutely not. I was done being responsible for Nancy's mental health. The officer said that was smart. Nancy needed professional help, not closure from me. Her arraignment was set for Wednesday. I didn't have to be there, but part of me wanted to go, to see this through to the end. Leo said he'd come if I decided to go. I spent Tuesday going back and forth about the arraignment. Part of me wanted to see Nancy face consequences, but part of me just wanted to move on. In the end, Heather convinced me to go. She said I'd regret not seeing it through, that I deserved to watch justice happen. So Wednesday morning, Leo and I went to the courthouse. It was smaller than I expected. We sat in the back row. Nancy's parents were in front looking exhausted. When they brought Nancy in, I barely recognized her. She'd lost weight and looked hollow. She saw me and tried to smile, but the officer made her face forward. The judge read the charges. There were so many. Nancy's lawyer entered a not guilty plea. Bail was set high because she was considered a flight risk and danger. Her parents couldn't afford it, so she'd stay in jail until trial. As they led Nancy out, she turned and looked right at me. She mouthed something, but I couldn't tell what. Then she was gone. I sat there feeling empty. This wasn't the victory I'd imagined. It was just sad. Leo squeezed my hand and we left. Outside, Nancy's mom approached me. She apologized again and said they'd failed Nancy, that they'd ignored warning signs for years. She asked if I could ever forgive her daughter. I said maybe someday, but not now. Not for a long time. She nodded and walked away crying. I felt bad for her. It wasn't her fault her daughter was broken. The ride back to campus was quiet. Leo asked if I was okay and I honestly didn't know. I was relieved it was over, but also weirdly grieving. The Nancy I'd first met was gone. Maybe she never really existed. The rest of the week was about finding normal again. I went to classes, studied for midterms, and tried not to think about Nancy. People had mostly moved on from the drama. Occasionally someone would ask if I was the girl with the crazy stalker. I'd just say yes and change the subject. I didn't want to be defined by what happened. Leo was amazing through it all. He never pushed me to talk, but was there when I needed him. We studied together every night and he made sure I ate actual meals. Slowly, I started feeling like myself again. I even laughed at his dumb jokes without forcing it. My grades improved since I could actually focus. Everything was getting better. 2 weeks after the arraignment, I got a call from Nancy's lawyer. He wanted to know if I'd consider a plea deal. Nancy would plead guilty to lesser charges if I agreed. She'd get probation and mandatory psychiatric treatment instead of jail. I said I'd think about it. Part of me wanted her in jail. She'd made my life hell and deserved punishment, but part of me knew she needed help more than prison. I talked to Leo, my parents, even Heather. Everyone had different opinions. In the end, I decided to agree to the plea, but with conditions. Nancy had to stay in treatment. She couldn't come within 500 feet of me or my family. She couldn't contact me in any way ever. If she violated any terms, she'd go straight to jail. The lawyer agreed to everything. The plea hearing was quick. Nancy stood up and admitted guilt to stalking and harassment charges. She apologized to the court, but not to me. Never looked my way once. The judge accepted the plea and sentenced her to 5 years probation with mandatory inpatient psychiatric treatment for the first year. If she completed treatment successfully, she could transition to outpatient, but any violations would mean immediate jail time. It felt fair. Nancy would get help, but also face consequences. As they led her out to start treatment, I felt a weight lift. It was really over. No more looking over my shoulder. No more fear. Just freedom to live my life. The rest of the semester flew by. I threw myself into school and actually enjoyed it. Made new friends in my classes. Joined a study group that met weekly. Started going to the gym again without worrying about running into Nancy. Leo and I grew stronger as a couple. We had real dates without drama. Studied together without interruption. Made plans for summer. It was everything I'd wanted college to be. Sometimes I'd remember something Nancy said or did and feel angry, but mostly I felt grateful. Grateful I'd gotten away. That I'd found real friends. That I'd stood up for myself. The girl who'd worn the same black hoodie every day would be proud of who I'd become. As finals approached, I heard Nancy was doing well in treatment. Her mom sent a letter saying Nancy was finally getting help for issues that went back to childhood. She thanked me for agreeing to the plea deal. Said it saved Nancy's life. I didn't respond, but kept the letter. Maybe one day I'd be ready to forgive, but not yet. For now, I focused on my own life. Aced my finals thanks to all the studying. Made plans to get an apartment with Heather next year. Celebrated Leo getting into his dream grad program. Normal college things that felt extraordinary after everything. The day I moved out of the dorms, I walked past the bench where Nancy and I used to sit, where she'd call me fat and I'd thought it was friendship. I didn't feel sad or nostalgic, just grateful I'd learned the difference between real friends and toxic ones. Summer was amazing. I got an internship at a marketing firm. Leo worked full-time and we saved money for next year. We took weekend trips when we could, met each other's families properly. His mom Jacqueline apologized for believing Nancy's lies about the accident. My parents loved Leo immediately. Everything felt right. I didn't think about Nancy much. Sometimes I'd have nightmares about her being in my room, but they got less frequent over time. By the time school started again, I felt like a different person, confident, happy, surrounded by people who actually cared about me. The apartment with Heather was perfect. We decorated it with string lights and too many plants. Leo practically lived there too. It was the college experience I'd always wanted. Senior year started and I barely thought about Nancy at all, until I got a letter from her treatment center. Not from Nancy, but from her therapist. She said Nancy wanted to apologize as part of her treatment, asked if I'd be willing to receive a letter. No direct contact, just a letter through the therapist. I thought about it for weeks, asked everyone's opinion, finally decided one letter couldn't hurt. It came a month later. Nancy's handwriting, but neater, more controlled. She apologized for everything, said she understood now how sick she'd been, that she'd projected her own insecurities onto me. She wished me well and promised to never contact me again. It felt genuine. I didn't respond, but I kept the letter. Closure of sorts. The rest of senior year was perfect. I got into graduate school. Leo and I talked about moving in together after graduation. Heather started dating this guy Juan from her economics class. We went on double dates sometimes. Life was normal and boring and wonderful. Graduation day came fast. My parents cried. Leo's family took a million photos. We all went to dinner after to celebrate. As I sat there surrounded by people who loved me, I thought about how different things could have been. If I'd stayed under Nancy's control, if I hadn't fought back, if I'd given up when things got hard, but I didn't. I survived and came out stronger. Nancy was apparently doing well in treatment, still in outpatient therapy but holding down a job, following all the rules of her probation. I hoped she'd build a good life, far away from me. That was 5 years ago. Leo and I got married last spring. Small wedding with just family and close friends. Heather was my maid of honor. She's engaged to Juan now. Funny how things work out. I work in marketing and actually love it. We just bought our first house. Little 2-bedroom with a big backyard. Perfect for the dog we're planning to adopt. Sometimes I tell people the Nancy story at parties. They're always shocked. Can't believe someone would go that far. But it taught me important lessons about recognizing toxic behavior, setting boundaries, not accepting treatment I don't deserve, and finding people who build you up instead of tearing you down. I heard Nancy finished her probation successfully, still in therapy but doing better. She never tried to contact me again. I hope she found peace. I know I did. Life is good now, really good, and I'm grateful every day that I was strong enough to fight for it.